Now I'd like to introduce the next panel, which will explore strategies to help Texas students transition smoothly from higher education to the workforce. From key trends in the Texas job market to innovation, practices in college career services, and the evolving role of corporate recruiting, our panel will discuss how educational institutions and employers can collaborate to better prepare graduates for thriving careers in Texas. You'll recognize the moderator of this panel, the MC, Melissa Henderson. Ms. Henderson is the Chief of Staff of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and also the Executive Director of the Texas Higher Education Foundation. In this dual role, she serves on the Commissioner's executive team and leads the Foundation's work to identify resources and build partnerships in the philanthropic community to achieve the strategic priorities and goals of the agency. She brings to the Foundation over a decade of working closely with philanthropic partners from across Texas and the nation to build coalitions aimed at streamlining pathways for students and beyond post-secondary education into the workforce. Please help me in welcoming our panel to the stage.
Thank you to our esteemed panelists for joining us this morning. So as all of you have heard over the last day and a half, our theme this year is Today's Student, Tomorrow's Texas. We've heard some great discussions, including a fantastic conversation with students themselves at the end of the day yesterday. And today I really want to kind of shift to how we think about preparing students for tomorrow's Texas. So we know that supporting our students into and through higher education and on to achieving their goals of completing a post-secondary credential of value is essential. The work, however, does not stop there. Texas, as you've heard, is now the world's 8th largest economy. We're number 1 in net new job creation, and the state has made incredible investments in industries such as aerospace and semiconductor. This is an incredible place of strength from which to continue to build. At the same time, however, we know that by 2031, 63% of jobs are going to require education beyond high school. We also know that nearly a quarter of skills required by employers are entirely new since 2016. We also face critical workforce shortages in education and healthcare. All of this means that it's crucial that our institutions of higher education work ever more closely with our business community to ensure that we're both delivering on the potential value of the credentials that students are earning and that we're maintaining our economic competitiveness. So with us today to speak to how we continue to collaborate at this intersection of higher education and the workforce are 4 leaders from industry, higher education, and philanthropy. Mayette Andreasen is the Associate Program Director of the Bachelor of Science in Visualization and a full-time instructional assistant professor at Texas A&M University. She currently serves on the board for the Texas Media Production Alliance, has served on South by Southwest EDU's Panel Picker Review Board since 2021, and she recently joined the SIGGRAPH Education Committee. Did I pronounce it? All right, great. Her previous work experience is in the gaming industry and as a freelance designer and illustrator. David Gentry joined Samsung Austin Semiconductor as a senior director in early 2023 and currently leads the people team. In this role, he serves as an integral executive member with a focus on building and executing strategic HR planning in the area of talent management, talent development, security, and general affairs for the 4,500 plus employees at the Austin and Taylor manufacturing sites. Prior to joining Samsung, David was the Senior Vice President of Human Resources at HID Global and held various HR roles at Qualcomm. Kathleen Gibson is the Managing Director for CH Investment Partners, where she focuses on expanding the firm's reach by cultivating new relationships and communicating its story, expertise, and unique investment capabilities. Before joining CH Investment Partners, Gibson served as President and CEO of Southwestern Medical Foundation for 11 years. She was the first woman to lead the foundation, growing its assets and endowment to over $1 billion during her tenure. And finally, Dr. Jason Valerio is the Regional Healthcare Liaison at South Texas College. He brings over 28 years of expertise in medical surgical nursing and nursing education. He joined South Texas College as a faculty member in 2000 and became Dean of Nursing and Allied Health in 2015. He has spearheaded numerous initiatives addressing healthcare workforce needs and was appointed by Governor Greg Abbott to serve on the Texas Healthcare Workforce Task Force earlier this year. Thank you again for joining us today. I'd like to start with you, David. So David, when you think about the workforce and talent pipeline needs of the semiconductor industry, specifically Samsung, and the students sitting today in our community college and university classrooms, what excites you? What excites you and what keeps you up at night?
So we'll start with a two-part question here. And first off, good morning, everyone. So what excites me is really the product we're working on. I mean, the fact semiconductor, the space is growing. We're powering servers for AI, smart cars, smart homes. Basically everything now has a chip in it. So it's a growing industry. And so we're having an impact across the globe on everything we do. So it's an exciting spot to be right now. And I think when I talk to students, just let them know how many things you're impacting. You actually see your work out in the marketplace. It's very impactful. So what keeps me up at night, there's actually quite a bit. One of them is why I'm here today. It's the talent shortage that we're going to be experiencing over the next 5 to 7 years. I think there's roughly 345,000 people in the semiconductor industry today. They expect that to grow another 115,000 by 2030. And I think at the current rates, about 60% of those jobs are going to be unfilled. So in addition just to the shortage itself, there's extreme competition for that talent. So as you know, everyone's growing, Intel, Micron, TSMC, ourselves, Global Foundries. Everyone's building new foundries here in the US because of the incentives that are out there today. So for me, it's the extreme competition, especially for students. It's very highly competitive getting really good students coming out of college. So that's something that I'm always thinking about.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. So Jason, let's flip that. From the institutional perspective, where you sit at the intersection of training the healthcare workers of tomorrow and working with their employers, what excites you and what keeps you up at night?
Well, definitely the workforce and the talent pipeline in Texas is a critical juncture right now, particularly in healthcare, where the demand for skilled professionals continues to outpace the supplies. And for this reason, on April 18 of 2024, Governor Abbott has directed the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to establish the Healthcare Task Force to address the healthcare needs of the entire state of Texas. As mentioned, very honored and very humbled to be appointed by Governor Abbott as one of the Healthcare Task Force members. I witnessed at hand and also gained a deeper understanding of the comprehensive level of the healthcare needs that we have in the state of Texas relating to the pipeline, modernizing the production model, and also bolstering faculty and also the preceptors. What excites me, I'm very proud of our work. We have about 18 recommendations. We submitted our final report to Governor Abbott October 1 of 2024. I know it was a short-term task force assignment, and the reason for that is this is in preparation for the upcoming legislative year. I'll be happy out of those 18 recommendations if two of the recommendations will become a policy. But looking at the 18 recommendations, you don't have to wait for the legislative year. You can already implement some of the recommendations to address the healthcare needs of your region. Another thing that excites me is living in Rio Grande Valley. I always brag about the commitment and the altruistic interests of our stakeholders in meeting the care needs of our region. And when I talk about stakeholders, we're not just pertaining to industry partners. We're talking about our high school partners, Region 1, of course, our industry partners, our local politicians. As an advocate in healthcare, sometimes you need to attend to those town hall meetings and sound the alarm, especially during the height of COVID, where I lost 12 of my faculty in the nursing program. And following the State Board of Nursing, that's 120 students that we cannot admit that semester. So we usually admit 180 per semester for our traditional program, and that year we were only able to admit 36. But long and behold, after talking to our local politicians, and I can back it up, they do have a genuine interest in taking care of the healthcare needs of our region. Hidalgo County gave us $2.6 million. And also the McAllen grant gave us $100,000, and I used that as a stipend to supplement the salary of our faculty. I will remiss that in as much as we all know for a fact that we do have a workforce shortage in healthcare, but one thing that sometimes is taken for granted is the faculty shortage. Okay? If you look at the healthcare status on the right side of the equation, you have a nursing shortage or healthcare workforce shortage. On the left side of the equation, you have a lot of wannabes or nursing healthcare perspectives. But in the middle, you have the faculty. The total number of faculty that you have, of course, your clinical placement will determine the number of students that you can meet in your program in a given semester. So I believe that the number one solutions in order to address the nursing workforce shortage is to address the faculty shortage, and the biggest factor is the salary. There's a big gap. What keeps me awake at night? Well, the same challenges also drive my continuous passion and commitment to South Texas College, and my strong advocacy, especially in rural areas, serving underrepresented and underserved communities, because we give them opportunities for economic prosperity. We have 130 programs at South Texas College, of which 91 are workforce and 39 are academic programs. We have a lot of level 1 and level 2 certificates. We have non-traditional pathways such as stackable credentials where they can start from CNA, phlebotomy, medical office transcriptionist, and they can go their way up to become an LVN, ADNRN, and also our community college, we now have the RN to BSN. I think we're the only community college in the state of Texas that offers 5 bachelor's programs in the state of Texas, and 4 of which are competency-based. And the reason why I'm mentioning that, one of the sessions yesterday talks about the exploration of now a competency-based education, which will somehow address the workforce shortage that we're having currently. And also, not to mention the rapid technological advancements. As a result of the pandemic, we just beef up our curriculum in such a way that we have to integrate and incorporate telehealth capabilities and telehealth curriculum in all of our 14 healthcare programs at South Texas College. But now with the AI that is coming. Okay? So in as much as the healthcare delivery is evolving rapidly, it is just prudent for the education to follow. In that way, we can lessen or mitigate the skills, competencies expected by the employers with our graduates.
Thank you, Jason. So, Mayette, your students are often going into a very different industry.
Yes.
Working for some of the leading video game companies and animation studios. So how do you, as a faculty member, think about connecting to those prospective employers and preparing students with the skills they need to succeed?
Yes, well, first off, howdy, everybody. Some Texas A&M, fellow Texas Aggies in the audience.
Dig 'em.
So we kind of tackle student success in 3 different ways. There's curriculum, there's events, and then there's industry partnerships. In terms of curriculum, a couple years ago, went to a workshop at a conference where the workshop was about how can we bridge that gap between graduating from a program and getting that first job. And so the people leading the workshop talked about their successes, and then everybody had to brainstorm what would work for their particular program. So the idea I came up with and I pitched to the curriculum committee and it was adopted was, how about we make it mandatory that students take a piece that they worked on in their studio class and put it on their portfolio? Because one of the things that holds students back from applying to internships and jobs is their portfolio. It's a living document that showcases their work. And, it's a highly competitive field. So you want to showcase that work in a way that showcases the work well, but also leads that employer to actually wanting to hire that person. And so that's the first thing that we've instituted, and I've definitely seen an increase in more quality portfolio pieces. Other things that we do in terms of events, we have several. We have the Viz Industry Fair, which is a student-run committee, and I'm the faculty lead on that. And so we have several events. There's the actual industry fair that's in February, and there's both a virtual version and an in-person version. So if there are employers who can't make it in person to College Station, the students have the opportunity to meet with them and interview with them and talk to them online. And then the next day is the in-person fair. We have resume reviews, we have industry-led portfolio reviews for students, and we have mock interviews that we do for students. So it's all through the fair. There's also the Viz Industry Partners, which meets twice a year in the fall and the spring, and the performance arts professional partners, which also meets twice a year. And that's when we bring in our industry connections. We talk to them, we ask them, what are the latest trends? What are you looking for prospective employees? They talk to students, students talk to them, and we get ideas on what we need to introduce into our classrooms to better prepare our students for the workforce. And we recently had that up in Fort Worth, because we also got a huge amount of money from the state for the Virtual Production Institute, which we are very grateful for. And so we have launched that. We've had summer industry course for our graduate students for quite a number of years. And that course is a summer course where graduate students basically are mentored by a company that partners with the university. So in the past, we've had Pixar, we've had DreamWorks, we've had ILM, and the mentors kind of guide the scope and what the end product of that is going to be. And for 10 very intense weeks, graduate students, and now we incorporate some rising seniors for undergrad, create a short animated film or whatever the industry mentors ask the students to create. And it's kind of almost like a 10-week internship or apprenticeship. This past year, we had a virtual production company, Stray Vista, who partnered with us. And the students made 3 short films, and they're really amazing. So we have all of those partnerships and those opportunities for students to really flourish and start meeting people. And then other things, we have a lot of speakers. We do have our alumni really give back. Like, we would not be as successful if it weren't for our alumni. And our alumni come in and they mentor students, or they will co-teach a class with a professor in their specialty. And so we have students that are coming out of the program with industry level skills because of that. So those are a number of the things that we are currently doing.
It's exciting.
And if I could comment on that, I mean, what Maya said is super important. The fact that you're bringing in the industry partner into these conversations, I can't express how important that is in helping design curriculum for your programs, basically doing capstone projects, the internships. What you're doing with the portfolios is very important for me as an employer looking for students. What's going to make this student stand out? And really, the education helps them get the foot in the door. But what I'm looking for is, how's that person going to thrive over the next 1, 2, 3 years? We have job descriptions. I'm sure you're all aware of that. But you're not going to come in saying this is exactly what you're going to be doing. I need flexible people that I know within Samsung, we really rotate people around to different groups, and it's not what they really signed up for, but they learned a lot, and we really place them based upon their experiences. Where do they really thrive? So having people that are flexible, have the base knowledge, that's all we're looking for. And from there, we have great training programs once they're on board. But it's really those people that go above and beyond, and that's what I'm looking for in that portfolio. So keep up the good work.
Why, thank you. We have a lot of studio group-based classes too. And so, and students have that throughout their entire tenure at the university in our classes. And because of that, they come out of the class. Some of the feedback we get back, which is positive, is the students have the soft skills necessary to enter into the workforce. They know how to communicate, they know how to work in a group and with teams, and they are excited about positive outcomes. So we are continuing to do that because it's got such positive feedback, and the students are really great when they get into that first job.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, Kathleen, philanthropy has played an important role in growing the biomedical industry in North Texas, connecting institutions with industry and in some unique and interesting ways. Can you tell us the story of that work and what reflections you have on how partners across sectors have worked together to advance this industry?
Well, there are many stories of the challenges of building biotechnology in our state, and we faced, and I'm sure everybody here knows, the intractable set of challenges of unleashing research from great universities across the state into humankind and benefits for society. And we have far too much great research that doesn't make it out of the lab, and we have a lot of tremendous research that doesn't make it into a company. And of course, the companies are a secret to workforce development for our state. And when we had advances that were coming out of the lab that actually did make it to a company, the companies, by far and away, were not coming in biotechnology to Texas. They were going to other states, where there seemed to be a plethora of much more talent in biotechnology around management talent. There seemed to be a lot more capital in the capital raising, venture capital world that was outside our state. And so those two sets of challenges, which was the companies weren't forming here and not all of the research that could be commercialized was coming out of labs as routinely as we wanted it to be. So over the course of, I would say, 30 years, I wasn't working on 30 years of this, but Lyda Hill Philanthropies was working on this for many, many, many years. And she likes to say, we found out through all that course of time, everything that doesn't work. And what we started to figure out was why was it working in other places, and started to fund studies and bring people to North Texas to really think through. She knew that there was plenty of money, that it wasn't just money. And what we needed to understand was what was working in Boston so routinely, what was working in California and New York and Pennsylvania. And we found that there was a common biolabs company that is a spin-out of what I'm going to call venture capital, biotech writ large. And they found that if you had standalone labs that were professionally run with tremendous equipment and access, with flexible benches. You could take one bench, you could take 5 benches, you could take all universities and have it be completely open to entrepreneurs, to universities, to industry, walking the halls and seeing the ideas. If you had that kind of setup in terms of a professionally run lab with a professionally run manager, that you could build a lot of the ecosystem that we lacked by bringing in the talent that knew that this lab was going to be running the right experiments and the right proof of concept. So we attracted biolabs as their 12th city, and we hired an Aggie to run biolabs, and she's doing a tremendous job. And we have more companies. We were immediately 3 to 5 years ahead of what we expected. More companies not just being formed up from universities in the state and entrepreneurs here, but people who know biolabs all over the world coming to Dallas because it's lower cost to do their experiment at biolabs in Dallas than it is at biolabs in Boston. And so we have found that we're attracting a lot more talent than we realized early on. So the role of philanthropy was really to say, what does this ecosystem need to stop and study, and then to bring in all of the partners that also, from a civil society perspective, needed to help us with EDA grants and city and state monies, and what could we attract in terms of sources of all kinds of funding that we lacked. Launch Bio would be an example. They come as a nonprofit side by side, biolabs, cities, and other enterprises like this, and they help us manage the EDA grant, get the community colleges and the universities involved, figure out how everybody who's a stakeholder can help play a part, and the universities come, and it's pivoted around all the research of our universities, and we want more universities to understand what's going on. Also, the real estate. was exceedingly important, and everything couldn't be day one current market rent rate. So there was subsidy from philanthropy. There was BioNorth Texas, who's a stakeholder, member-driven group of stakeholders in North Texas that helped us coalesce the entire stakeholder community from every phase of the industry and university world, and form the member group, start the conferences, really realize the census of what we started with. We thought we had not as much of an ecosystem at the beginning as we actually did, but what we found was we had at the very beginning, as we did the census, more than 3,000 stakeholders. So there's a lot of innovation in North Texas, but it needed that, I'm going to call it civil service, that philanthropy and those who can step outside of industry for just a moment to build these coalitions and build the grants, build the monitoring and the partnerships between universities and industries. So it was a wonderful and is a wonderful story. I don't know if anybody in the room knows about what's happening at Pegasus Park, but I would invite you to come, and we'd love to show it to you.
Thank you, Kathleen. So I want to pick up on this notion of ecosystem. So we've talked about a number of different industries. We've talked about a number of different perspectives from the student perspective, across institution type. So as y'all think about navigating across this ecosystem of institutions to support pathways for students that lead to careers, it can be complex. So I'm curious your reflections on this and how institutions can work better together.
Let me take
Anyone
a
can
stab
jump
on
in.
this one.
Yes, anyone can jump in.
Well, I mean, the ecosystem from a semiconductor standpoint it's going to be key over the next few years, and it's not just educators and institutions, educational institutions and employers. It's also government, state, local, and now even national. So it's going to take all of us. And then when we're looking at an ecosystem, it's not just four-year universities, right? It's two-year colleges. We're looking even through K through 12 is where we're starting. One of the big challenges we're facing or we're seeing is there's not a lot of interest entering semiconductor when you're in K through 12. A lot of people don't even know advanced manufacturing is a pathway. So we've been spending a lot of time with our workforce development team and going into the high schools and the middle schools, talking about STEM and all the career pathways to get to semiconductor. But then it's that partnership with the two-year university or two-year colleges and the four-year universities, getting them to talk about, okay, how do we extend this pathway from the high schools through the 2 years to the 4 years? I would say over the last 2 years, I've seen more conversations here in Texas on that topic than what I've seen in the past. Quilon here on my workforce development team. Yeah, raise your hand. She's really the one driving a lot of the work we're doing here locally. So to me, it's creating this ecosystem where all the right partners in the right room having the right conversations. And I think now more than ever, I'm seeing that. So I'm excited about what's to come.
Yeah, I would back that up, actually. Absolutely. So when I was in high school, I knew about animation, but I didn't know all the other pathways that you could go to in art in terms of careers. And my art teacher brought in an artist to work, who was a graphic designer. And she gave us a whole presentation on all the different career paths you can go to in art. And she talked about industrial design, graphic design, she talked about animation, everything. And suddenly this whole new world opened up. And it's like, oh, okay, these are all career paths that I could go into. So that educating the high schools and grade schools is absolutely super important. Also talking to other universities. So I know that I have friends and colleagues at UT and at ACC, and I know they do similar partnerships with industry and the like to get their students prepared for the workforce. So I am aware that lots of people are out there, and so I'll share information with them. They'll share information with me. Cross collaboration is really important, and that lets our students hear about more opportunities out there.
Fantastic.
In biomedical science, I would say that there's an example at A&M with the vaccine manufacturing facility, where there is workforce development in jobs that are high-paying jobs that don't require advanced math, they don't require biology, they require certificates and they require skills training. And employers are working with the manufacturing lab on curriculum that now is being delivered very broadly to help train up workers for a field. And that kind of building of an ecosystem is something we've seen in other states and something that's getting much more attention But it needs, and Melissa's worked on some of this in terms of, does it require a college degree or does it require a certificate? And I would say the philanthropy that you've been leading in Higher Ed Foundation has been pretty pivotal to putting industry and university together to figure these things out and get the curriculum right.
Well, thank you, Kathleen.
Well, in terms of healthcare and with my experience with the healthcare task force, navigating the ecosystem between institutions to students to for a successful careers is very complex. I think the complexity arises from the different missions of all the institutions. At the end of the day, we do have a common goal, and that is student success. However, we need to address on how we can seamlessly help our students to transfer from point A to point B. As Dr. Murray has mentioned a while ago, that clear outcomes is one of the key indicators, right? And looking at the findings that we had with the Healthcare Task Force, according to TEA, in academic year of 2022-2023, we have about 19,768 high school students that have earned their healthcare national certifications. However, we don't have a data of those 19,000, how many of those students matriculated to post-secondary? How many of those students that have found jobs? How many of those students that have to repeat their healthcare course when they transfer to community college or to university? I think we need to address that in order to mitigate the redundancies and also hasten the completion of our students.
So I want to build on that. So we've touched on a number of different strategies, but I'm curious y'all's reflections on what does it mean to operationalize this work? What are the strategies, additionally, and to what you've already referenced, that you've seen be successful in bridging this gap for students between how to excel academically and what does it look like to translate that into being prepared for success in a career?
I think we, just speaking as an employer over a long period of time, I think the transition that a student has to make in their minds and how do we help them make this transition from all of your rewards for all of your academic life being rewarded based on your own individual performance to a workplace environment where it really almost doesn't matter what you individually do all by yourself because you really need to deliver much more broad-based results as a team and as a member of a team. And that transition from my own individual thinking and my own individual rewards to what the company and the corporation and the university needs from you in a group context is a transition that I think we should address head on as a really important mindset shift. How do we change the goal orientation of our kids coming out of school? We've trained them that way. It's not their fault.
That's a great point.
Yeah, when I'm interviewing, there's a lot of I did this, but it needs to be more about, okay, we as a team and we collaborated. So how do you build that teamwork and
Right.
flow to us?
So true.
Great point.
Thank you.
I would just like to echo what David has mentioned. Definitely it requires an effective collaboration, not just the institutions and also the clinical industry partner. It should start from our high school partners. As early as 8th grade, we have to introduce careers to our 8th grade high school and target those high school students that are geared towards the healthcare. And as early as high school, we have a dual credit programs, right? Appropriate advising is very important for them. If you can advise them to take about any courses that will have a bearing towards their associate degree or their bachelor's degree, in that way, upon graduation, they already have English 1301, they already have ANP 1 and 2, and they already have some of the humanities. And also, we need to be intentional of the stackable credentials and also create a pathway for them. If I need to spell it out to our high school partners, okay, 9th grade of spring, these are the courses that they can take if their goal is to become a sonography, respiratory therapist. 10th grade, what are the courses in fall, what are the courses in spring, so on and so forth. So by the time they graduate, they can seamlessly transfer or be admitted to the program in their, depending on their field of chosen study. And also, I would like to bring in the employers as far as early as day one, and not just towards the end or when they are about to graduate. One of the best practices that we have at South Texas College, whenever we do a mandatory orientation for all our students that have been admitted to our programs, we bring in the employers. We give them 30 minutes of their time of their mandatory orientation of what they're looking for their institution. And the very first day of their mandatory orientation, we only talk about wrap around student services. We invite Center for Learning Excellence, our library, our financial aid, our advisors. In that way, students will feel, yes, I know this is a rigorous program, but I have a lot of support. And also that sense of belongingness as early as day one is very important according to research studies.
Yeah. One of the things that we require for students who want to attend the industry fair, whether it be virtual or in person, and this was the student committee that instituted this, was they had to attend professionalism workshops. So we have those, and they're virtual, so there's no excuse as to whether, oh, I can't attend it in person. We sign on Zoom. It's very easy. And we invite industry to come to those professional workshops and talk about different topics in terms of working in professional environments, some of the do's and don'ts. And we have those in the fall and we have them in the spring. So students have to attend that. And one of the reasons that the students who lead the committee instituted is they were like appalled at some of the unprofessionalism that certain students exhibited, and they're like, we've got to help them to understand this is not acceptable. And so we are seeing more professional behavior because of it, students understanding more what employers are going to be expecting from them when they come into the workforce. So we've had some success with that as well.
And just two other points on this briefly is we can talk about the student getting prepared, but again, the teachers and what their impact is on those students, we got to make sure there's some education for teachers on what needs to go there. So one thing we're really pushing is externships. We bring them on for a week, show them how we produce semiconductors and all that, but then they go back and they're a voice to the students on, hey, this is what you can expect. This is a career path. They actually have a better understanding what's needed in that workplace. So I encourage you to really look at externships if there's a possibility. It's a great way to get your teachers prepared to influence your students in their career growth. And then something you said very early on was the alumni. We have many alumni from universities all across the U.S., and they love the opportunity to go into classrooms and just speak about what they do. They're very passionate. I could send HR people, I can send recruiters, but I can tell you a student rather hear from someone actually doing the job than from someone HR on how to do the job. So leverage those alumni as best you can. I mean, they will have a direct impact and they will drive excitement within your student base.
That's fantastic.
Melissa,
Yes.
if I may add, I know that Dr. Murray also mentioned about the work-based learning as one of those five. And then yesterday, they mentioned a lot about the experiential learning. We're going to implement our very first registered nursing apprenticeship this coming spring of 2025. Our nursing apprenticeship is approved by the U.S. Department of Labor, where as early as day one of the traditional ADN program, our students during clinical, they will get paid. And fulfilling the requirements from the U.S. Department of Labor, they will only do their clinical and fulfill their clinical rotation in one hospital. And for me, that's a big thing because looking at the statistics, 37.2% of our newly licensed nurses, they quit their job within a year. And the reason for that is because of burnout, because of inadequate onboarding. I feel that the apprenticeship will play a big factor in mitigating and hopefully decreasing that attrition. So we're very excited about that registered nursing apprenticeship at South Texas College in collaboration with DHR Hospital.
That's exciting. So, from a faculty perspective, you've talked a lot about different strategies that you're implementing on your campuses for your students. What supports would help you do this more systematically for your students as you think about bridging this gap between academia and the workforce?
Well, David mentioned, externships, faculty development, faculty training in our field, especially when new technologies and the like come out. I found going to different conferences in my field to be very helpful. I've learned a lot of the new things that are coming out. I've been able to take some of the things I've learned and bring them back to the classroom because these are the things that people are doing. So it's like, oh, well, this is what they're doing, so let me show it to my students so now they can do it. I've found that initially sometimes students are like, well, why are we learning this? And then when you talk about all the potential opportunities and all the different people who are using it. So for instance, photogrammetry, that is when you take a bunch of pictures of something and you turn it into a 3D model, right? That is being used for archival purposes. It's being used in anthropology. It's also, of course, used in games. It's used in film. Now, I didn't realize this until last year. A lot of film sets, they build them, and then they just destroy them afterwards. So if they have to do reshoots, they have to rebuild the entire set, which is incredibly wasteful. So one of the things that is starting to happen is they're laser scanning these sets and they're making digital doubles of the sets. So if reshoots have to happen, they have a digital double of it, right? For archival purposes in anthropology and the like, now we're preserving these artifacts and they can be 3D printed. So then you don't have to worry about people touching the actual artifact and destroying it. You can touch the 3D printed replica of it, or you can look at it digitally, right? And so all of these things are being kept.
Yeah, even though it sounds like the digital twin,
Yeah.
we are definitely using that in our fabs, looking at where every pipe, everything's laid out. And
Yeah.
we're going to need more of that skill set with it.
They're using it in designing roller coasters and like too. Yeah, they'll make 3D models of everything before they even fabricate it.
Yeah. So if I'm a student, that's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have time for maybe just a couple of questions, but before we do, any final thoughts, any key takeaways as y'all think about how to make sure that we're best preparing students for the jobs of tomorrow?
Melissa, I like what you're doing on the industry collaboration with universities. I hope that continues. The state can play a really important role there.
Fantastic. Anybody else? Any
I
final
think
words?
we need to listen to our students and also familiarize yourselves with the data. And when I speak about the data, try to tailor it and get the data on what pertains to your community. Let me give you a concrete example. In Lower Rio Grande Valley, the top 13 healthcare job demands listed by the Texas Workforce in 2024, 11 of which are being offered at South Texas College. There are only 2 that are not being offered, and then dental hygienist and surgical technology. So with that dictates the programs that a community college or any institution of higher ed can offer. In that way, we're addressing the needs of the community and also we're addressing, in general, the healthcare needs of the state.
Thank you. I think we have time for just a question or two, and we've got mics available. I think we've got a question back here. There's a mic on its way to you. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you all for doing this today. This morning we learned that 1 of 4 students in a Texas 4-year program have a paid internship. I don't know if that's low or not. Haven't been involved in career and college high schools. I know there's a big push for high school internships. I appreciate you guys speaking to your connection to high schools, and that was going to be my original question. But now, my personal experience is that with my son is that he had a great high school internship focused on his plans for his future career. The frustration he has seen recently is that he wanted to continue this momentum throughout his first couple years of college, but a lot of the companies, they all want juniors and seniors because of the knowledge that they have, et cetera. So I guess my question, a two-part question. First part is, what can be done by higher ed industry to promote opportunities during this 2-year gap? And as you're thinking about that answer, my second question, more of a statement, is I do happen to know a guy that is an electrical engineering major. He happens to have my same last name. He's taking his final and circuits right now. So just,
Question
David,
maybe for you.
just want to let you all know about that. So anyway,
I can give you my card afterwards.
Any general reflections on
Well, there are our admin team is great that we have, and they are constantly sending out jobs that they have on campus that are not just unrelated to visualization. They're sending out like, hey, there are jobs where you will get paid that maybe it has some art or visualization related trajectory. And then there's professors from other colleges who reach out and say, hey, we're looking for a research assistant in this, or we're looking for someone who has an expertise in that. So I do understand it's very hard if you're not a junior or a senior to get an internship. Some of them are out there, but there might be opportunities on campus with some of his professors, or in a staff position on campus that is related to his engineering major that he might want to explore. So it won't be a formal internship, but he will still be getting that experience.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the junior seniors where they kind of specialize, where they know where they want to go with their career. So that's why that group is really targeted the most. But I do, just from an industry perspective, seeing it getting more competitive. So you're trying to get to the students earlier and earlier and earlier on. So I do envision there's going to be more freshman and sophomore internships over time, just from that competitive standpoint. From the high school, we do high school internships as well. We just partnered with Taylor since we're out there now. So we hire quite a few interns from Taylor High School over the summer. So I think it's, again, the key word in all this was the ecosystem. How do we collaborate between the high schools, the 2 years, the 4 years, and not have each institution work in a silo? It has to be collaboration. And from a semiconductor space, I don't just need chemies or EEs, all this. I mean, I even need software. From the production side, I need big data, data analytics. But even outside of that, with all the construction doing, we're having a huge shortage in HVAC, electrical, some of the technicians, which are we're coming out of the 2-year university. So we're pushing things such as apprenticeships now. We're working with military bases. I'm bringing in technicians straight out of the military, putting them in touch with like ACC, TSTC, getting them trained up. We bring them on board, and then we train them, and then we send them to classes where they can actually get their 4-year degree to become engineers. So that is a partnership with all these different organizations. And that's not easy to do. I mean, it's hard enough just me getting my teams within Samsung to collaborate. Now doing this across all the different partners, that's a huge challenge, but it's going to take all of us. That's the only way it's going to be successful.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. So please join me in again thanking our panel for today's conversation.
Thank you.